Today is not a traditional teardown as such. Instead, I'm going to answer some frequently asked questions about my teardown process on this channel. Those questions could be like where these engines come from, how I acquire them, why I buy certain engines and you don't see other engines on the channel, at least not yet, as well as what happens to the scrap, what happens to the parts, what happens to the fasteners. Hopefully I'll answer all of those questions. I'm also going to show you all of the engines that are waiting to be torn down. And like the cars in my driveway, there's a few too many. I think there's close to 20 or more. Yes, I have too many cars and way too many engines. I only do one teardown a week. That's all I've got time for. Unfortunately, running this place, I've got a bunch of employees. I've got a family life as well. There's only so much time I have to devote to these teardowns, but one a week I can do no problem. I'm happy to do that. And in the event of a day off where everyone's got a day off, you might catch an extra one during the week. Product acquisition is one of my strong suits, or at least I'd like to think so. Everyone in my life knows I love buying things. I'm sure you guys are learning that as well. So to hunt these engines down, it's a thrill for me. I love sending emails, making phone calls, and finding out what is available. And these cores come from literally all over the place. They come from dealerships, repair shops, they come from salvage yards, and I even buy some from my viewers, although I admit after the Viper incident, I may dial that back just a hair. And let's talk about what a core actually is. A core is usually someone's old engine or an engine that has been condemned. And there's various types of cores. There's rebuildable cores and non-rebuildable cores, and sometimes it doesn't really matter to me. A lot of times I'll buy a core just for one part on it, and I'll throw the rest in the scrap bin. Not so much anymore. I usually make videos on it. But these cores are usually engines that I have checked out or at least seen pictures of, but a lot of times I have to buy them sight unseen. And the places I get cores from usually get them from their customers. So a salvage yard sells a good engine with a warranty, and they'll charge a $200 or $500 core charge on that engine. When the customer brings back their old, bad, original engine, they get their money credited back to them, and then I come in and buy it, or other places come in and buy it. Usually I try to get there first, but that's how they get them. So that's the whole process of how these cores come to exist. Just because you see a lot of the same engine over and over again on this channel doesn't mean it's a bad engine. It just means that I target buying those cores. I have set relationships with places that know I buy all 5.3s, 6.0, and 6.2s. I pay immediately, and I pay more than anybody else, which is why I get so many of them in here. It has nothing to do with how good or bad that engine is. It's just that I'm very familiar with the LS market, with the parts, and I know exactly what I can get out of those engines. Plus, they come apart really easy, so that's always a plus. You may say things like, why don't I see Volkswagen or Audi engines on your channel? Well, I don't know them. It's not that I think they're terrible engines or they're all super reliable and I can't buy any. I just don't know that market yet. I can't know everything. I'm learning every single day. So the fact that you don't see certain engines is not a good indicator of how good an engine is either. Let's talk business ethics. I hate selling bad parts. I hate returns, so I do everything I can to avoid that. It costs money for shipping both directions, but really the worst thing about it is it wastes people's time, and no one's happy about that. People are super excited to get their car fixed or their project started, and having to return parts because of a defect that I didn't catch, I hate it. So I go through great lengths to avoid it. Just because you see me pull a cylinder head off, or you see at the end of a video I've got a set of rods and pistons that I say looks good, it just means that it's ready for the next step, which is cleanup and inspection. And I use this parts washer, which is what most machine shops use to clean cylinder heads and crankshafts and bare engine blocks and rods and pistons. Most of the engine gets run through this and then quickly cleaned up afterwards so it doesn't rust. And then we inspect them thoroughly. We have mics here, we measure everything. I do not want to sell something that can't be fixed, and I also like to represent what I'm selling as well as I can. I often see people ask in the comments how they can buy parts from me. Well, the easy answer is to email me. I put that in every single video. I'm going to leave it in this video as well. Email us at importapartsales@gmail.com, and we'll reply within usually 24 to 48 hours unless it's on a weekend. But I must admit, if you're emailing on a video that is more than a couple months old, chances are those parts are long gone. But I do buy a lot of the same engines over and over again, so I may have something for you. I also sell a lot of these parts on eBay. I have running listings for Gen 4 rods and pistons and valve covers, oil pan. A lot of the stuff I get in over and over again makes its way to eBay. And I have a Facebook Marketplace listing in the St. Louis area. You'll have to move your location to St. Louis to find it. If you just type in LS Builders, you'll find my listing and you can message me on that. Eventually, we'll have Importapart.com as our website, which will have parts on it that you can buy directly from us as well. Another common question I am asked is, what do I do with the hardware, the nuts and bolts? Everyone is curious to see where that stuff ends up. And a lot of the one-time use stuff does end up in my scrap bin, as it should, but the rest of it usually ends up in buckets for use around the shop. I've got various projects going on here, and at my house I have brand-specific kitty litter buckets filled with bolts. I've got BMW buckets and GM buckets, Toyota buckets. I've got all kinds of hardware at the house, and I can't tell you how much time and money it saves when you have a project or an incomplete car that you're working on to have all of that stuff at your disposal. And I always get asked if I'd sell that stuff. And I would. I would absolutely sell nuts and bolts from these cars or engines, but I'm not quite sure how. Do I do it in 5 pounds, 10 pounds, 20 pounds? Do I do it by brand, by the actual car it is, or is it a mixed bag? You guys tell me. I'm open to suggestions here. Let's talk about scrap. Well, my ferrous metal ends up in a lugger bucket sitting outside my building or in some of the parts cars when we are done with them. And then I also separate my clean cast from my breakage, which breakage is like a mixture of iron and steel and aluminum that you can't easily separate. It's complete transmissions or engines that are junk, water pumps, oil pumps, that kind of thing. And then I also have a harness wire bin, which you see me pull harnesses off of these engines. They end up in a wire bin, and I get paid accordingly for each box of wire. These are called gaylords. This is what I usually store the stuff in, but you'll see me separate it sometimes in the video or maybe at a later date off camera. This is likely the part of the video that most of you have been waiting for, and this is the line of engines I've got waiting to tear down. We'll start off here. This is another BMW N63. It's another Hot V twin turbo V8. No idea what's wrong with it, but I paid less for it than the injectors are worth. So I can't lose. I can pull the injectors out, throw the whole thing in the scrap bin, but I'm going to do a video on it instead. I've also got another 6-liter LS. It's an LY6. There's another BMW N55, which I'm not looking that forward to, I'll be honest. What else do we have here? This is the first LS4 I've had in a while. This is the front-wheel drive 5.3 liter. It's about a 300 horsepower engine. I used to do a ton of these cores, but I don't see them as much anymore. It's basically your regular 5.3, has 243 heads, but it's got a different bell housing, has different manifolds on it, different serpentine setup, but I get a lot of good parts from them. I've also got a Mercury Marauder 4.6 liter 4-cam engine. I really don't find these that often. I got really lucky here. Well, I'm not going to say that yet. I bought this because it has 9-thread heads, and I hope the heads are good. The heads might not be good, and if the heads are not good, then I lost money on it. I've also still have this 5.8 liter Mercedes V12. It's an M137. I'm not really avoiding this engine. There's just been lots of good stuff coming up after it, and I don't think there's going to be that much wrong with it. But I could be wrong. Ah, yes, the Porsche Cayenne Pepper car engine. Cayenne Pepper. I just learned that from one of my viewers. This is an engine out of one of our parts cars. It's a 4.5 liter V8. It does run. I did hear it run, but it ran very poorly. It has low compression in 2 cylinders. I think the previous owner drove on bad coils for a really long time, destroyed the cats, blew a hole in the side of the exhaust. It was a mess. Car was a mess, and then they hit it with like a tow truck or a forklift to make it look total to bring more money at the auction, I suppose. I've also got this EcoBoost. Yes, another EcoBoost. It's a 3.5 front-wheel drive from a Ford Taurus or a Flex. I actually bought this because I have another good engine here that needs a pan and a timing cover, which I hope to get off of this engine. And tucked way back here is a variable valve timing 2UZ 4.7 liter. It's a dual cam engine found in Tundras and 4Runners, GX470s. I did a non-VVT version about a month and a half or 2 months ago, and I haven't done the VVT version yet. And this is another engine from our parts cars. This is actually from a 93 Eurovan, and it is locked up. It has a blown head gasket, and someone drove it long enough to lock it up, which means I can't get the torque converter off, and I can't sell the transmission without the torque converter. So here it is. I've also got another 5.3. I think this one's got a broken block. I think this engine runs good, but the block is broken from the wreck it was in. And another 6 liter LY6, and this one has no pan, so that's a little alarming. Due to the success of the last 6.7 Cummins engine I bought, I went out and found another one. But this one is not quite as good. It has a foothold here. It's just so you can climb up it when they're standing on their tail. Maybe that's not what it's for. Either way, I expect some good carnage out of this one and a lot of good parts. And another 6-liter, which looks like it pooped itself. Something tried to come out of the windage tray. So that'll make a good video. I've also got this 2017 Honda Fit Earth Dreams 4-cylinder. This engine apparently came out of a customer's car that hit a deer. It broke the radiator or blew a hose or something, and they drove it without coolant in it until it wouldn't run anymore. It's not like cars have warning lights or temperature gauges. And then I've got this really clapped out, worn out, ill-modified Miata engine. It came from one of my parts cars. It does run. This is out of a 94 to 97 that someone VVT swapped. I'm not quite sure why you would do that. None of that stuff was hooked up. It smoked like a mosquito fogger. It had hard starts, low compression. It ran terrible. I'm interested to see how bad the inside of that one is. And lastly, I've got this Mercedes M278. It is a twin-turbo, direct-injected, intercooled V8 out of a 2013 Mercedes S550. I'm sure it makes a bunch of power, or it did. I'm both happy to work on this, I'm excited, and I'm also scared, and hopefully I have enough tools to get this apart. It looks like a mess. Those aren't all the engines I've got to take apart. There are more. On my shelves, I've got a BMW M62 TU. It's a Vanos 4.4-liter V8 to take apart. I've got another BMW M52 TU out of a 99 2003 series, a Land Rover V8 from an LR3. I've got a Mazda Speed Miata engine that I need to take the turbo parts off of. That engine's blown up pretty good. The list is endless, as you can tell. There are so many engines here, which that's a good thing. I've got a lot of engines to take apart, which means a lot of videos for you guys. The bad news is that I've got a lot of engines to take apart. A lot. And I know, I need to get to my Cobra. I know I haven't worked on it. I have acquired parts. That's the easy part. But I've fired a few too many irons, and I just have a lot going on. And I'm hoping to get to this really soon. Anyway, like always, I love all the feedback, all the comments, and even the criticism. I love it all, and I'll catch you on the next one.